All right, so today's video is going to be on 4 different ways my mindset has changed since I started lifting. This is going to be anything from specific things within my program to more attitude and mindset stuff that I've learned along the way. I would be very curious to hear the rest of the Noble Natties' take on this. So anybody, Stan Strength, Steve Shaw, Jeffrey, Alpha Destiny, Fast Lifts, Natural Hypertrophy, everybody else, I'd love to hear your takes on this. So if anybody's watching this, I'd love to hear if you guys have had a similar situation to me, similar experience, and I'd love to hear if you had anything kind of unique to yourself. So I think this would be a cool video to put out there, almost similar to the mistakes we made as a beginner. I think this is a good follow-up video to not just the mistakes we made and the advice we have for when we started lifting, but the ways that our mindset has shifted for the better. And I think this could complement that really well. I'd be curious to hear everybody's take on that. Even if you don't have a channel, like even if you're just an advanced lifter and you watch this stuff, it would be cool to hear your takes too. Just let me know in the comments if you've uploaded that video. So with all that being said, let's get to the first one. So number one, the first way my mindset has shifted since I started lifting to where I'm at now, I would say diversification in terms of the lifts that I'm using, and not just the lifts that I'm using, but the way that I approach them too. If you've been following the channel for a while, this is a recurring theme. To any new viewers, there's a lot of you guys. The way that I like to think about this is there's no more accessory lifts in my training. I used to have that, and that was a very bad habit of mine. Essentially, the purpose that I had each lift in my program for would be to serve a more important, bigger lift in the program. I'm realizing now that that doesn't program properly for bodybuilding or hypertrophy in general. What I was doing was picking lifts that revolved around one bigger main goal in terms of a lift. And now what I need to do is realize that there's no special lift, there's no secret lift that everybody needs for hypertrophy training. But we all have the same muscles, and each muscle needs its own lift. So something like forearm training, I would just skip it because it didn't align with my goal of getting a bigger X lift, insert big barbell lift here. And what I needed to do was target the muscles instead. So now my old mindset was, why do I need to do direct forearm work? I can just use straps when I do my heavier deadlifts. Now, obviously forearms are going to help your deadlift. They're going to increase your grip strength. That's very straightforward. But there's ways around that where you can kind of make excuses to skip forearms. Why do you think most programs don't have any forearm training in them? Do you think forearm training is taxing, super difficult, takes a ton of time? No, it's none of those things. It's easy to put in your program, but nobody does it because it doesn't directly correlate to an increased, bigger barbell lift in your program. So what I'm realizing is my deadlift doesn't need bigger forearms. My deadlift doesn't need stronger forearms, but you know what does? My forearms, the muscle itself, needs to be bigger because I'm training for hypertrophy. So will my forearm lifts go up and get better when my forearms get bigger? Sure. So yeah, I'm training my forearms to get better at forearm lifts, but I'm only doing forearm lifts to get bigger forearms. So it's kind of this cycle where it's like the chicken or the egg, which is more important, which came first. And in this case, it's going to be the forearm muscle. I'm using those lifts so I can continue to grow my forearms, and that's very straightforward. I've talked a lot about that in the past. Not going to go too much into that. Let's move to the next one. So number 2, this is more of a mindset and approach one. This is going to be attitude. Point number 2 is attitude. I go into each set to destroy mental weakness and prove my strength. And this is something that is a core philosophy to my training. I think as important as it is to increase the size of your muscle and train for hypertrophy, you also have to have the right mindset too. So those are the 2 fundamental core reasons of why I train. It's not just the physical, the mental is important too. My goal is to make it past where most people would give up, whether it's in a training session or within a given set. It's a fight between weakness and strength, and ultimately you have to be the survivor. You have to make it out alive, and you have to realize that what you're doing isn't going to be easy or comfortable, and it's going to be past where most people would start to give up. Whether it's 0 RIR, 1 or 2 RIR, this isn't a technical aspect to my attitude or approach. This is a purely mental, purely psychological and attitude approach to my training. I want to destroy each set just to prove myself wrong. to prove that weakness that we all kind of have inside wrong and shut that down and slowly start to get that out of my system. After years of doing this, I'm a much tougher and more resilient person, mentally and physically, from training with this mindset. It helps you quite a bit. So if you're not already implementing this into your training, instead of making everything super comfortable and easy and fun and exciting, like, it's good to enjoy your training, of course, but you also should be kind of striving to be a little bit more resilient, a little bit tougher. Taking your training with that mindset and that approach helps you a ton in that regard, and you turn into a stronger person. Most of us, I'm not going to speak for everybody, I'm going to take that back. Myself, I wanted to get into lifting, one, to be bigger physically, because I thought that would help me be tougher mentally, and it did. But at the same time, if you just gave me muscles for free, that would only solve half the problem. It's earning the muscle and earning that hypertrophy through the tough work that builds that tough mindset. So those two things complement each other very well. They're both important. I'm not going to say which one's more important because I think they're pretty equal, and I think for each person it kind of depends. But having the benefits of each of those that kind of build you into this tough, resilient person is going to be key. And that's something that all advanced lifters have in common. They're all tough, resilient, and obviously jacked. Number 3, this is going to be a more technical one, quite literally. This is going to be technique. My goal with technique is the difference here is the prioritization. I used to use technique as a way to just put more weight on the bar, which doesn't actually do much for hypertrophy. When you're changing your technique, you're sacrificing one variable to increase another. You're just doing this. What I'm doing now is I'm refining my technique. And this is a classic example of just patience. And that's another trait that I don't have included on this list, but is related to technique. When you're improving technique, you're sacrificing progression, like tangible progression in terms of added weight and added reps, for the short-term and long-term benefits of improving your technique. We can always add 5 more pounds to every lift, even more than that. I know I could, but it would be at the sacrifice of an important fundamental of training, which is technique. So what I'd rather do is say, all right, let's push that back, have a little bit of delayed gratification. Not that I care much about strength numbers anymore, but even if I was to, it's better to delay that gratification and reset your technique, improve your technique, drop the egotistical attachment you have to certain strength numbers because you're just running yourself into a farther hole. Cut the cord now, reset your technique, and even if it's slightly off, like, take that extra session just to optimize things and get it back to the fundamental and optimal technique that you need to actually target that muscle. Once you have that down consistently, the gains will come. If you want to see strength numbers, they'll come. You just have to be patient with this, which is a trait that most people don't have. And it takes that lifting experience and progression to actually understand and kind of earn that patience. But it's something we should all be trying to understand and practice in the meantime in life and in our training. That's my key there. So I'm not perfect. I mess up my technique. Sometimes I get greedy and I chase that extra rep or two, or chase that kind of higher weight than I probably should. That's totally normal. And I'm not going to sit here like I'm perfect and I'm just always in optimal technique and progressing constantly, because I'm not perfect. I've just been doing this for longer than most people. What I've done is understood that I need to check myself, fix my technique, and wait for the progress to come. And I know it will if my technique is perfect. So I recommend you do the same. Number 4 is going to be, and this is a good one here. Give me 2 seconds. I'm like just getting over getting sick. My throat is super dry. It's just a pain in the ass. Let's see. Number 4, leadership and responsibility. And this is something that I never really saw coming, but it's something that it kind of naturally happens. And I think this is something that a lot of us start to experience. I know Alpha Destiny touched on this. I can't remember when, or I can't remember what video it was, but I do remember he talked about this, and it resonated a lot with me. I think it's a great point. I'm no longer doing this training for my own ego. I'm doing it because it's my responsibility to do something with what I've built, and I don't want that experience to just end with myself. Whether I kept lifting or quit lifting, I don't want to be the dead end. I want to continue that on and turn that dead end into multiple roads that turn into more roads and more roads after that. The biggest thing with me here, I'm no longer lifting purely for myself. The example that I want to give here so you guys can understand this timeline, and I think this is something that is not exclusive to myself. This is what most people experience through lifting or any other avenue that they go down as a person. But what I'm seeing here is you look at most people that are, say, kind of an intermediate lifter, and let's take a look at everybody that has a platform that we can all go check out. I'm not going to name any names, but you look at most of the kind of intermediate lifters and the people that are still in the process of getting towards that more like experienced, advanced physique in the gym. The people that have those physiques, their social media tends to be about themselves. It's typically vlogs, posts of them shirtless, training vlogs, like it's all that kind of stuff. It's all about them. The more advanced people, like say most of the noble natties that are on this platform, it's never about them. If they show themselves, it's to teach somebody something. It's always about you guys. And I want to make one thing clear here. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being in that intermediate stage where you are making it about yourself. I think that's a good thing, actually. I used to be like that. When I was kind of transitioning, I was kind of a beginner lifter, intermediate lifter. The stuff that I'd post online was 100% about me. Like, yeah, maybe I'd help people here and there with a certain video or post or whatever, but it was always about me. And that's a good thing because it was about me. If I started to end my own lifting and make it about other people before I actually, one, had the physique that I wanted, that I was satisfied with, and two, had the experience and knowledge to actually teach and help other people, I don't think that's a good thing because I'm just ending my journey shorter than it should or making it more difficult earlier than I should. So for anybody that's posting about themselves or making content that's primarily for themselves, that's a good thing. It's okay to be in that spot, and it's motivating because you're still working on yourself, and that's a great thing. So I do want to make it very clear, that's perfectly fine to make it about yourself. One thing that will happen to everybody that is in that phase right now, I can almost guarantee this because I see it all the time, you'll start to make content for other people. There's this weird thing, and I'm not trying to act like I'm great or I have like better morals or anything because I didn't choose that. I think it just happens to everybody. Once you start doing something for long enough, you know it pretty well, and you have this weird desire to just teach it to other people. I think it's a great thing, and that's one thing that has definitely started to, I'd say over the past couple years, start to trickle into my mindset and my approach to lifting is my desire to teach other people and expand my knowledge. I've been taking notes on my phone. This is what's turning into these videos now, probably over the last 2 or 3 years, and I still continue to do so. It's like it started from my journey it was all about me because it needed to be, because that's something that I want to get good at, lifting. And slowly, as I got better, the more I wanted to slowly make it about helping other people. And that's obviously what this channel's turned into now. It's not really about myself, besides the fact that I love to make these videos, and that's obviously completely selfish. It's something that I just like to do. It's my hobby. I do it for myself, but at the same time, it also fills that desire of wanting to connect with you guys and help other lifters get to where they want to be. So yeah, I'm no longer doing it for myself, of course. I'm no longer doing it purely for myself. A lot of it is, yeah, it's something I love to do, and it is for me, but it's also for you guys, and that's a huge motivator for me, because when I learn something new, which is easier when you have more experience, I can teach it to that many more people. When I make a discovery in my own training, there's that many more people that I can teach it to, and that's the coolest thing about having a platform like this, and I'm incredibly grateful to not only be able to post these videos that get as many views as they do, but actually get to interact and connect with people that are like way better than I am, and maybe better than I ever will be. I get to interact with all these great lifters, and you guys do too. It's a great community that we have here, and yeah, it's cool to be a part of. Definitely pretty interesting. So that's what I'm going to end the video on. I know I had 1 or 2 other ideas that I kind of drew a blank on, unfortunately. So little bit of a cliffhanger for you guys, but I'll probably make more videos like this and I'll have a follow-up. So any more ideas that I have, yeah, you'll see them in the future. So if you have any questions or anything, let me know in the comments.